Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Boluat Feolong Tola, a junior digital marketing executive here at Futuresoft, and you're all welcome to today's Launch and Learn. So Launch and Learn is a bi-weekly program here at Futuresoft where each staff get to train people on topics relating to our industry. So today I have David Woruka, our lead graphic designer, and he will be facilitating the session on the topic, the impact of UX design on your brand. So if today is your first time of joining us, you are very much welcome. And as the session goes on, please kindly mute your mic and if you have questions to ask, you can drop them in the chat box. And after the session, David would address those questions. And you can also unmute your mic after the sessions to ask your questions. Thank you very much for your cooperation, and over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Tife. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Woruka. I think the introduction is already done. So, but can everyone hear me? Please confirm if you can hear me.
I can hear you, David.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So today I'll be taking us through the impact of UX or the impact of UX design on your brand. So I'm sure UX design is a term most of us are already familiar with. So primarily today we're going to be looking at, we're going to start with introduction. Then we look at UX strategy. Then we'll have a case study to break down the strategy. Then conclude for the day. So I will start by this quote from Steve Jobs, which says, design is not just what it looks like and feels like, but design is how it works. So design basically is process of developing purposeful and innovative solutions that embody functional aesthetic demands based on the needs of the intended user. Is applying developing of goods, services, process, and environmental designs as well, or environmental experiences. So one thing I need you to notice, design is, first of all, it has to be purposeful, and it has to be an innovative solution, and also it has to provide solution. And then it has to be functional, and also there should be some level of aesthetic demands. So like Bruce Mal, who's a designer, he would say design is the combination of art and engineering. So, but some people always feel design is basically art, and that's because you have the look and feel, you have all those things fused together to make it work. But design basically is not art. Design, needs functionality. Art, on the other hand, just has to exist. Design, on the other hand, has to solve problems, while art can provoke thoughts and emotion. Art is basically perceptual, while design has to be rational. Design also has a purpose, while art can serve any purpose the artist chooses. Also understand that art is unconstrained. However, the artist wants to express whatever limit, it's not bound. But design has constraints for the clients, the business, and also for the users that it's intended for. So user experience basically means, or UX basically means user experience. And it's the quality of experience, a person has when interacting with a product or a specific product, whether it's a desktop application, a software, mobile application, that experience the person has, that quality of experience the person have, that's what user experience is. In other words, it can be said to be like, that's enhancing that satisfaction, of the user when they're interacting with the product. That's satisfaction being enhanced by improving the usability, accessibility, and the pleasure provided by that product you've created or the system you've designed for them. So I would give more examples of what usability, accessibility means. So for just to make you understand more about the concept of user experience. So, but why is UX design important? It's important because it focuses on providing, the positive experiences that keeps user loyal to your product or service. You know, it more or less like gives the user a meaningful experience that makes them want to come back to whatever you're doing. It focuses on the users. It basically takes you, the designer, or you, the organization with the experience, and it places it in the hands of the users. You know, and it helps you understand the journey of your user. It helps you understand the different aspects of a user when they're interacting with your product or your service or whatever it is. So UX thinking primarily considers, you know, who are the users, what are their challenges, and how can they be solved. So these are like the primary things like UX thinking helps when it comes to user experience. It places the user first. You know, it asks who are the users, so what are their challenges and how can those challenges be solved using, of course, UX design principles. So some key factors, you know, for a perfect UX design is usability. I mentioned, you know, UX user experience being that satisfaction or enhancing the satisfaction the user derives from interacting with your product by enhancing that usability, accessibility, and the pleasure of interacting with your product. So usability is basically how functional is the design, you know, and how easy for the user to grasp, how easy is it for them to use. So if you've created a design, you design a system. So how easy is it for the user to actually access it in terms of the usage? How easy is it for them to understand? Is it going to be too complex? Is it going to be too difficult? So that's what usability means. If you create a product that is not functional and it's very difficult for people to use, then you've not created a product per se. So accessibility is how easy is it for them to find. If you've created a solution for your users, that means you have to make it accessible to them. They should be able to also have access to it and find it. You know, if you're placing it in the market, wherever you're doing it, however you're going to approach it, it should be easy for them to find. Then also it should be desirable. So remember this talking about design as well in the initial stage, I explained the fact that design has to also have some form of aesthetic demand. Because if the design is just functional, but it's not desirable, then at the end of the day, it's not really going to still sell. It's not really going to eventually solve that problem. If someone else comes up with the same solution and they make their design more desirable, more appealing to people, people will lean more towards their solution than yours. So one of the things you should look at is it praiseworthy? Is it an experience? If you've created a design and you've created an experience, whatever, you know, to whatever extent you've done it, is it something, you know, people would want to talk about? Is it something they would want to share with others? Is it something they would really like? Is it something they'll get excited about? So those are some of the things you have to consider. Then some of the things that also makes a good UX also, you know, the UX has to be effective, it has to be efficient, it has to be engaging, you know, then it has to have that room for error tolerance. So error tolerance in the sense that, let me give a simple instance. So if you want to delete a file on your phone, you always see the prompt that comes up, you know, that asks you, are you sure? And where you have to confirm yes or no. So that's like an example, an easy example of an error tolerance, because imagine you're working on your device and you eventually click on a button without even knowing, and then your file just deletes. That's going to be horrible. And maybe that's a file you actually intend to use. And that's why you still have the recycle bins on devices. And earlier on in the usage of mobile devices, there were no recycle bins. You know, but as mobile devices kept developing, mobile devices now have recycle bins. And the reason for this is so that when you delete certain files, you can still recover them if you still have need for them. So that's just some examples of error tolerance. So I've talked about, you know, it should be easy to grasp. So that's talking about ease of learning. When people encounter or interact with your design, it should be easy to learn. It should just be straightforward without any form of difficulty. So then let's just dive into how to create a user strategy or user design strategy. So for this, I would first of all start with the basics, and then I'll run you through the processes you have to go through for a user experience strategy. Then after that, I would use the different stages. We have broken them in a case study to explain how they are applicable in real time. So one of the first things when designing, a user experience, like the name is the user experience. So it's first you have to understand the user. So understanding the user, you can get your informations or get insights about the user from different research methods. Whether you're carrying out surveys, whether you're using data you already have access to as a business or as an individual or as an agency, you need to have data of the users. You need to at least get information about them. So, but some of the things you need to understand primarily first is who are the primary users for that system you want to create. So let's say you want to create a web design experience, you want to create a mobile app. Who are you designing these things for? Who are the people that are going to use this? The primary people that are going to use it first before any other person. And secondly, you should also look out for who else, might also interact with this product or service I'm creating. So what are their expectations, because basically before you're designing your user experience, you're trying to create a solution. So for the solution you're creating, so what are these people expecting when they are coming to your platform, when they are coming to the design you've created, when they're interacting with it? What are the possible expectations? And also, what actions do you want them to take to achieve that goal? You've created this design for as well. So, and then what do you want to surprise them with when you interact with your platform? So if you've created a game, so what is it you want to surprise the user with when they log into that game? What's that special wow factor? There are a lot of people with games. There are a lot of similar games in the market, but what makes your own product stand out? So these are some of the things you have to consider. And of course, you have to get this information, like I say, through research. So you might, for some organizations and for some agencies, they already have data based on specific requirements, based on specific information, and they already have access to these things. So, but if you don't have access to this information, there are two ways you can go about it. You can empathize. So when I say empathize, it's basically creating a scenario mentally, either, of course, with a team, where you start to piece one or two things together, trying to understand the kind of persons or people you're already picturing that might interact with what you're creating. But it's always advisable to use real-time research, look out for possible users, get investigative informations to be sure that what you're actually creating relates with reality. So in as much as it's also good to empathize. That might just be the first phase to give you an insight of possible people to reach out to, but it's important to always base your user on real-time data and research. So the second phase is developing user stories. When you've understood the users, who they are, the primary users, their expectations and the actions you want them to take, and that surprise you want to give them. Users usually are not just one person. They represent a number of people. There are multiple. They might range from as low as maybe 10. I don't know if there's any product or experience that just has only 10 users, but they might be as low as 10 and to millions. We can see the people and even billions with a number of users on Facebook. So you create a user persona, after you understand the user from your different user segments, however you're going to arrange users from, apart from segmenting the primary and secondary user, your primary users might be in 2 or 3 categories of people, or yes, 3 groups where they have similar personalities or similar interests or similar characteristics. So for these individual groups and segments, you create a persona. So that persona is a description of the, let me say, the imaginary person based on the realistic characteristics of those individual groups. And one thing, some of the things personas help is they place emphasis on the specific users. So if you're creating a product, you'll have to understand that, okay, these are the people I'm creating it for. And this persona actually represents that particular user, the ideal user. So if you have, let's say, 5,000 people, represented in that category, this one person embodies that characteristics that most of those 5,000 people would have, and it helps us to make better decisions as well when we're creating designs for our users. So, and they also help design development teams to understand better who they are dealing with, so that they don't just, create stuff and at the end of the day it's abstract and it's not visible for any other person. And then under the user stories as well, you still have the user journey map, and that's a term most of us too are familiar with. So basically, it's the visual illustration that shows the flow of a user through your product or service. It identifies key interactions and touch points with your product, and it also describes details of their goals, their motivations, and feelings at each steps. So the user journey maps basically breaks down how your user flows through your product in terms of both the psychology, how they access the product, from where they are coming from, the different phases of interacting with the product, possible things they might need, their emotions at different times, their challenges at different times, and this helps you create solutions for them better. So then after you've understood your user, you've developed stories, creating the persona that represents that particular user group, and then you've also mapped their journey through your product. It's best to also do a competitive audit. Do an audit where you analyze, the industry based on the solution you're about to create. So like I've mentioned a game, I've talked about gaming initially. So if you're creating a game, so the particular game you're creating, what is it like? What are people doing similar to it? So you can take a look at what other people are doing, see how you can actually get insights into what they're doing. This is basically not just a copy, but for you to have understanding, for you to see what's working for them, what's not working for them, and see how you can also innovate and improve on what they are doing. And sometimes you might be creating something that is already existing, 100% working very well, and it's just more or less like a derivative idea. We saw it with Uber and Bolt. When Bolt first launched, I had a conversation with somebody that I doubt these people were going to be successful, but over time I was proven wrong about that. And I think we also saw it as well. Same thing with Lyft as well. Lyft also used the same ideas and they also became successful. So it's important to see what others are doing, but it helps you understand the standards in the industry, and it helps you understand what's working, what's not, and it gives you an insight for opportunities to create innovation. And then after your competitive audit, you do a prioritization metrics, if that's the term to use. So basically, you've understood the user, you understand how they're interacting with your product, you understand their expectations, you understand the actions you want them to take to achieve their goals. And then you understand what other people are doing and what works in that industry and where you feel there are gaps and you want to innovate. So the next thing is looking at the product holistically. So what are the key things you have to put in place for that product or the design you're trying to create that are very valuable, that without these things, this product will not be functional, this product will not be effective, and the things where if these things are actually scrapped off, the product will still be functional, it will still be effective, it will still work. So this is what your prioritization helps you do. It helps you organize, what's important, what's urgent, what's relevant, and so on and so forth. So you know what to focus on first. So if you have to launch, if maybe for instance, you have a limited time, for some projects, you might have up to 2-3 years to work on it. But if you're trying to deliver a solution for a client who is in need of it urgently, that's where this comes in very handy. So you know the first things to focus on in terms of the whole project holistically. So you can make, you can prioritize those and put them into development first, so that when that goes on, the project can start working while you're actually iterating to modify and to see how you add every other stuff that may not be urgent in the moment and be impactful without, we impact the product negatively if they are not currently implemented. And some aspects to analyze for this is, first of all, the awareness, the channels people we use to get contact with this product. Then you also have to look at the revenue. How does this product make money? So that's key. So awareness, the reason why I placed it in this category is people have to know of the product first before the product makes money. So if they don't know of the product, they don't know of the system, they don't know of the experience you're designing, it can't make money. So it has to, people have to know about it, and then it has to make money. So you have to consider these things. So if I'm going to be scrapping out certain functionalities, how much is it going to affect based on the awareness this product will get, based on the money or the revenue this project is supposed to generate? Then you have to look at the efficiency, which is understanding how you manage the expectation of the users. So the things they're expecting when they want to see, when they come onto your platform, when they visit that product or design you've created. How do you ensure you optimize this? How do you ensure that you're putting the things that are important first for them? Because in as much as they are aware of the product and the product is going to make money, the product has to work first of all for them too, for the money to come in. So you have to put into consideration these factors as well. And basically, this looks at the design, the experience you're trying to create holistically, and it's always judged based on the urgency and the impact in which it could have if it's either scrapped off or if it's implemented. So it looks at it at that high level form, and it helps you understand how to structure your project and how to make it very effective when it's launched. So then after that, after you, of course, have an understanding of your user, you've gone through the process, you've prioritized. So you now stick to understanding the actual requirements, the little bits of elements. So for each categories which you've prioritized. So for the things you need to put in first. So what do users really need? So what would they be looking for? So some of the things I've listed here is we've seen people implement cases of augmented realities for people who are more or less like decoration and interior decoration freaks and so on. If you're designing, let's say, a furniture, if you're designing an experience for maybe a furniture company, how can you integrate methods using augmented reality? Or maybe they can just use their mobile phones, in placing in an empty space, creating of course, a mobile application where placing it in an empty space, they can actually visualize, by placing stuff in terms of their decoration styles while using real-time cameras to view the environment. So we talk, one of the simple things people often use when it comes to a lot of web applications and even mobile applications as well, it's still payment integration. A lot of people want to carry out transactions online, and you have to consider stuff like that. One thing as well when you talk about communication is usage of chatbots. So these are like some common stuff, every now and then users require when interacting with a product. There is just a whole lot more. But I just listed these three as an example, and I'll drive this down home better when I get to the case study. So then finally, after you have all these details in place, so what you have to do is to create your information architecture. Your information architecture is where you piece the user requirements and everything you've done, understanding what other people are doing and so forth. Where you piece it and structure it into a situation where when the user is interacting, they are accessing the right information at the right time. They are navigating in the structure in which they should. They are going in the direction in which they should be headed. They are not lost, they are not confused. It's easy, there's a flow, there's an understanding, and there's satisfaction when using this. So basically, this is the process you go through in developing a user experience. And in as much as I've explained this to this point, I know it's up in the air and it's a bit vague. So I put down a case study to help bring it down home so that you can understand how these different processes can actually be applied in real time and how they can how they can be used, to create an experience. So one thing I want to point out here is the fact that user experience, primarily, a lot of user experience designers will always say UX is like the evolvement or the continuation of HCI, which is human computer interaction. But there's something you need to understand that user experience thinking can be translated to every other aspect of your business. So not just necessarily in interactions with devices, but you can use it both for your customer experience, and you can just still use the same structure and the same style involved to develop any experience you want as well for your business. So it's important I note that. So here is a business overview. So this is a coffee brand I've made up. So they are new in the market. They are committed to invent the coffee experience, showcasing coffees in a new light. Inspired for their love of coffee, they have a variety of choices available for both dining and takeaway and so on and so forth. But this is what a typical brief would look like. And I want to be specific about the brief. The reason why I want to be specific about the brief is because this is where you start to extract the information. So even if this is your own personal business, you get, sometimes this is how we think as business people. We look at things from the holistic view, and then a lot of times it's a bit up in the air. So this is what a typical brief might look like, which is we're new to the market and we want to set up a website that is engaging and give our users an immersive experience. Yes, but immersive experience is up in the air. It's not clear what an immersive experience is. We want our customers to have a seamless interaction while engaging with our website and hope to drive our revenue through it while giving them an out-of-the-world experience. Now, some of the things that are key here is the immersive experience, a seamless interaction while engaging with the website. They want to drive their revenue, and yet they want to give their customers an out-of-the-world experience. These are the things businesses will always say. These are the things they will always think. And even those of us who are in business, these are the ways we always think about business. Okay, we want to give our customers experiences that are out of the world. We want this for them. And we're also in the process of giving them this experience, we want to drive revenue. But how? How do you go about doing this? Because this basically doesn't tell me as a designer anything. It doesn't really tell me, much about your business. It just tells me how excited you are for your business, and the customers, and how you want to improve the experience you have with them. So which is where the strategy then comes in. So I started with understanding the user. So a typical way to map, how you understand the user, the expectations, actions, and the wow factor. So using the coffee company we've talked about, this is a new entrant into the market. They want to develop a website that helps give their customers an out-of-the-world experience. So what does that mean? So this is where the research starts. So maybe trying to talk to, key personnel of this business, trying to understand them, and also carrying out research in collaboration with them or based on data they already have access to and they're giving to you. So you find out who their primary user is. So in this case, I've mapped out young professionals who are energetic and always on the go, who are dynamic, crave variety, and always wants to be surprised. Now, the truth is, this is not always just going to be straightforward like this. If you have this encounter with real-time clients, of course, you have to ask key questions. You have to read their cues to understand the kind of people they deal with, and you have to seek for data. That's why I say it has to be research-based. So, and there could be more of this. This is just representing one segment of their users. There could be a different kind of user who can still be categorized as the primary user. So, but for this case study, I've just focused on the primary user, and then there's the secondary user. So an example of the secondary user, which is why I had to list it here, is, our vendors that supply us with the raw products needed for our daily operations, So the expectations for the primary user is they want a cutting edge and state-of-the-art interface that showcases product clearly. Their purchase is just a few clicks away. See, that's like an explanation now. It's getting clearer. So when you're talking about the immersive experience, so if maybe you've sampled a few of these persons from this segment, it gives you an insight of, okay, so some of the things they're looking out for is they want a cutting edge state-of-the-art interface for this web experience. It should showcase the product clearly. And when they want to purchase, if it's possible for them to just click a button and it does everything for them from scratch to finish, it's easy. That's what they're looking for. So they don't want to spend so much time on the platform. They want to get there, look at it, feel excited, and get away as quick as possible. In as much as it's going to be clean on the eye, they don't want to waste time looking for what to do. They don't want to get confused. They don't want to get lost in the midst of this. And then for the secondary users, the expectation is they want to easily navigate the web and get information on supply requirements. So actions you want your primary and secondary users to take. For the primary users, visit our website, browse through the menu and special offers, order select items, mix varieties, make payments on order, and also reach customer care with ease. For the actions of the secondary user, create portal, manage and track supply inventory, track transactions. So basically for the primary users, it's like a common understanding of, okay, this is like the e-commerce style stuff. Okay, we display our products, they can select what they want and they can make payment. Now, but for the secondary user, it gets a bit complicated because then you start to look at how you integrate an enterprise resource protocol where they can manage inventories, you can specify details of certain things and they can track transactions. Like, it's a bit more complex, but from this you can start seeing clearly, okay, if we are going to be designing a website for these people, this is what we should be looking out for. And these are the kind of people we should bring into the team. These are the kind of experts we need. This is to the extent we should go. This is how we should be able to set timelines because of the implementation of certain things. This is what we should be able to charge, because getting an expert to create this kind of stuff, integrate this is what it will cost, or getting a platform we can integrate, this is what it's going to cost. So this starts to give you an insight both on the user, on the customer you're designing for as well. So it starts to give you insight and it starts to give you direction both from the user and from the business perspective, and also it's relevant. Then for the wow factor, so this is what the business is like. It's already saying we want to offer a daily special menu on the website. So if they are going to offer a daily special menu on the website, that means you have to start to figure out or think about ideas on how do we integrate this. This is a key thing for them. So how do we bring it to life and how do we push it in a way where it is also going to be a major thing when the user interacts with the website. So now after going through this process, the next thing would be having the information you have from your primary users, and of course, which, like I said, remember this is segment, and the data from here will be, of course, from multiple interactions with actual users or from data from the organization, data they already have. So from there, you build a persona. So, and I've created a simple persona that embodies the idea that is about to be captured by this business. So I've talked about Tina Abiodun. She's an example of that young professional who is on the go, who wants to be wild every time, who wants to be surprised, who is looking for variety. She's that person who is a go-getter. She wants to do everything, in a sprint, and she likes her stuff classy. So some of the things you see about her already, she's trendy, she's tech savvy, and she's fun-loving. So the fact that she's trendy, tech savvy, and fun-loving, it means this has to reflect, her personality has to reflect on the kind of interface she's going to be working with. If she's trendy and your interface is looking like stuff from the 90s, that means you already lost her. If she's tech savvy and you're using technology that is not in tune with the trend as well, that means you've already lost her. And if your website is not fun, you already lost her. You see? So like I say, she's a typical Lagosian, she's a go-getter. I would not let anything cramp her style. So if she comes to your website, while she's considering other people, she's looked at this client, she's looked at this other store, and she's looking at your store. And at the end of the day, she's finding the details. If she's spending too much time, she quickly leaves you. So you start to get an insight that this is not somebody you want to waste your time with in terms of, playing around. You have to ensure that everything is accurate to get this kind of customer. So this is a very fast-paced individual. Then you talk about her motivation. She takes pride in her associations, pays attention to every little detail. She likes her orders exactly to her taste. I would even cancel a cab ride just because of a minor dent. That is how much she pays attention to details. So you have to put this kind of things into consideration. Of course, these things are exaggerated, but the reason why they are exaggerated is so that you understand to the level of excellence you're supposed to be chasing when designing for the user. The goal again is wants to feel like she's in New York while living in Lagos. I mean, that's a very high bar. She wants to access her menu remotely and yet have the feeling of being in the store. So you understand, like, she almost wants to have a kind of human interaction level of service, even while accessing you remotely. But the pain point is have access to limited options and want something new, wants an exciting experience every time she orders her daily snacks. So this gives you an insight of who you're designing for. So ideally, in a real practice, if you want to start this experience, this persona, this is where, as you're starting from, this is the first place you pick out. and you share this to every team member involved in that design experience or in that design process. And this helps them to understand for every role they are going to be playing for this project, for every role they are going to be playing in this experience design, it helps them to understand, this is who we're dealing with. So everybody has access to this information. This is not something you create and you put it in a book. No, this is something you create and you distribute to your team members, whoever is going to be on that project. So everybody has access to this. So at any time they're developing something, they're looking at Tina. Would Tina like this? Looking at all the information we have about Tina, will this work for Tina? And if possible, start referring to Tina until Tina becomes a real person in their mind. And that's how you develop a very good product, where by the time people start interacting with it, it feels very real for them and it feels very excellent because you've designed it based on a real person. So this is where you start from. Then after this, being a new entrant into the market, how would Tina find you? How would Tina get to know you? And what would Tina interact with you primarily? Now, when you look at this, I've basically mapped out from awareness to web search, ordering, checkout, and delivery. This is the primary function. For some other websites, for some other designs, it might be more complex. So you might need to have several maps for Tina to understand her interactions, for the different interactions she's likely to have with your product. So for this one, if Tina is yet to be aware of you and she wants to order a coffee and snack, so what is Tina doing at that point in time? She wants to order a coffee and snack. What is she possibly thinking? She's that lady who is on the go. She's looking for new experiences. She likes everything. At that point, she's thinking, okay, where do I order from quickly? The channel she's probably likely going to use easily are digital channels. So basically, you start to look at, she's likely going to be on social media. She's basically online. So that means if she sees an ad about coffee or she's typing about coffee, that means your ad should be popping up, and then if she even searches, among the search, the first two searches should be seeing your ad should be there. If maybe she was just watching YouTube or maybe she has talked to a friend about ordering a coffee, with how Google snoops currently on our conversations. If she goes on YouTube briefly, she should be able to see your ad. So these are some of the things you start to map when you go through Tina's journey. Of course, she can easily use digital channels because she's a tech-savvy person. She's trendy and she's fun-loving. So she has to be online every now and then. So if she's on Instagram, she has to see your ads as well. If she's on Facebook, Twitter, and so on, she has to see your ads. So the feelings is she's not sure where she will order from. Pain point is looking for an alternative different from her regular stops. There are places she usually goes, but she's that exciting person. She's looking for new variety. She's looking for something that will blow her mind and take her to the next level. So the opportunity here for you is to extend your marketing channels and ensure that the branding is consistent across. Now, it's important to know this because if you have yourself littered all over the web and even in real time and in all form of media, but people are hearing different things, people are seeing different things, then nobody understands who you are, nobody knows who you are. So in as much as you're extending your marketing channels, you have to ensure that the branding is consistent. So this is one opportunity as well for the brand. So if it's a brand where their branding is inconsistent, this is one thing they have to start looking at. Because when you are consistent, then it's easy for you to be recognized. So you see, this is one of the things you have to look out for. So, but I may not spend time going through the entire process. So, but basically for the web search, you see her thoughts as well. What are the service options? Can they deliver to my locations? What are their menu? These are the thoughts she's considering. For the channel, still search engine. For feelings, she doubts the value of the business. So for the pain points, needs a level of certainty before interacting with the business. If she wants to interact with the business, she needs to know these new people, who are they, you see. So that's where the first solution comes in, why they've approached us. You design a website with e-commerce features and a classy UI. Then you utilize Google My Business to showcase more about this and have easy links where they can call, click, and even just click as well and visit your website as well. So these are some of the things you start to look out for. At the point where she wants to order, she has made the decision, she has visited your website. She's asking, how do I access the menu? How do I select items to cart? How do I switch between menu and cart? these are possible things she's thinking of, using myself as an example, using yourself as an example, you can easily put yourself in her shoes. If you want to order, these are some of the things you're already thinking about. By the time you've selected an item, you want to maybe check something back at the item, you're thinking, where's the cart button? So that means it needs to be accessible between your items, or selecting your items and checking your cart, selecting items. There should be that seamless transition. And of course, the platform is still your web, desktop and mobile, like I mentioned. So you have to be thinking about the responsiveness of the mobile, of your platform as well. If it's, since this is a website we're analyzing here, so it has to be mobile responsive. And as simple as this sounds, there are still websites in 2022 as we are that are still not mobile responsive. So it's important to understand that this is actually very key. So her feelings at this point when she's trying to order, she's anxious, she wants to get her orders going. Her pain point is she needs immediate access to the menu and a seamless transition between menu and cart. So you have to, like I've mentioned, that these are some of the things she might have challenges, and you have to put that into, that. So for the opportunities, you ensure, user is just a click away from the menu. Immediately they get to the homepage. So when they visit your website and you're selling coffee, you're selling snack, they should just be able to access menu or click order now and get to what they are going, because this person is anxious to get her order going. She's that person who is on the go. She doesn't like anything to waste her time. So I've also talked about the button, so you look into that. So then for checkout, some of the things might be an issue of, if she requests to use a debit card, she might not be very, comfortable just paying, especially in Nigeria. I've backed out from a couple of websites because when it gets to the point of paying, I don't know where I'm putting my credit card details. But you see, for some, they'll tell you secured by Paystack, or some they'll tell you secured by Flutterwave. It looks simple, but that helps quality assurance when the client is actually, or the customer is interacting, or the user is interacting with your business. So little things like this, needs to put in place. So for delivery, when she gets notification for the completed order, so what next? How should we see deliver? Those are some of her thoughts. Channel is still your web. So feeling she's still unsure, she wants her order delivered. So her pain point is she needs to know how am I getting this delivery? So you can show progress of her order, from her order being processed to delivery. So if she has finished placing her order, you can show progress, order processing, or order being delivered. And you can even do live tracking, if you want to go to that extent, to ensure that she's satisfied. So you see, when you piece this together, it gives you a more holistic view of how the user feels, how the user interacts, and it starts to widen your mind. So for the different experiences, this particular user will have with your platform, you have to map out those experiences at a different point from start to finish. For all the different experiences from start to finish, you map out their actions, their thoughts, the channels, their feelings, their pain points, and the opportunities you have to innovate. So that's the benefit of this. So when you understand the user, you map out their interactions with your product, and this will give you a more holistic view and to understand how to build a better experience for them. So then after that, you come to the competitive analysis, which is basically looking at the pros, the cons of what other people in your industry are doing, and then looking out for areas to innovate. There are different ways you can do this. You can do it in a quantitative way, where you're just analyzing numbers, you're analyzing certain things. But this is one of the easiest because it's straightforward. You can map out 3 competitors and look at what they're doing. So, but one of the key things you need to know here is when mapping out your competition, you can map out 3 that are primarily, in the same business with you, but you can maybe add 2 more who are not in the same industry or in the same business as you, but they can actually take money off your hand, or they have similar things that you can actually grab from. And it's important to note that as well, so you understand how you can position yourself better. So on this map, I've actually just added just 1 image and maybe 2 pros, cons, and 2 innovations, but this can be more. So if maybe you like the payment style of theirs, you can take the screenshot of as much screenshot of the individual progress of their payment system. If it takes 3 steps, you can take screenshot of it. Maybe even take that of the mobile and the web UI, and then you map out the benefits, you map out the cons, then list all your opportunity for innovations. And you can do this not just with just 1 image alone. So if there are different sections, you can map it individually. For one product, you can map it, vertically, where from top to bottom. Maybe if you're starting from the homepage, you're mapping out the pros, the cons, and your room opportunities for innovations with multiple screenshots of it. Then maybe for ordering, you're doing the same thing just for one brand. So you can have this. So this, like I've noted here, it's like a whiteboard exercise. So this is not like, as structured ideally as should be. This can be you just printing out 5 sheets of paper and also sticking it to a wall, and just writing stuff on sticky notes. Then after you've done that, you can then analyze it into a proper document. So where you see your different competitors, you're seeing the pros, the cons, and your room for innovations. So ideas you can take from their pros, you can take, and the ideas for your innovations, you take them. For your cons, of course, you know what not to do. So then when you talk about prioritization, so now you know the user, you know how they interact with your product, and then you've seen what others are doing, you've taken the benefits from them, you've looked at the opportunities to innovate. So holistically, to design this website that helps Tina interact with you, to get her coffee. So what are the key things that are important? So you could see for this table, so I will explain it a bit. So here to the left, here you have important, here you have urgent, not important. So the idea is if anything is at this first column, that means it's important and urgent. Anything here, it's not urgent, but it's important. And anything you place here, it's not important, but it's urgent. And anything you place here means it's not important and not urgent. So looking at the website holistically for awareness, one of the things that are important and urgent, they need brand identification. They need a user interface design. They need a company story. People need to know where they're coming from. They need social media channels because people can link them from their social media to their website, and also vice versa to keep in touch as well. So of course they need SEO. They need social proof, but some persons may not need this. They might just put out more ads, but basically you need social proof because most businesses, when they want to launch, they always show you videos from the activations, and they use influencers and so on. So they need that social proof to get customers, especially for a new entrant. For an existing business, maybe not. Then when you talk about the revenue, how they make money, they need to showcase their product. Of course, they need to show their store location. And of course, they need to show their service options, because if they deliver and they don't showcase that they deliver, how would people know? Of course, for efficiency, they need you to contact them, maybe their forms, FAQs, then of course you need the legal, which is talking about privacy policy and so on and so forth, terms of use and so on and so forth. So then for things that maybe might be not urgent but important, you talk about delivery tracking. People can still order without knowing if their delivery is coming. They can just call to find out and you can assure them. So, but this is still important, but it's not necessarily urgent. Having a community as well is also important, but not necessarily urgent. Having news content is also important for a business like this, but not necessarily urgent. So I didn't get to map every other one. I just mapped some of these things, but this is the idea. So the top left is important and urgent. The top right, not urgent, important. The bottom left is not important, urgent. And the bottom right is not important, not urgent. So that's basically how you map your overview on how to develop the experience. Then after that, you state out your user experience, your user requirements, sorry. And here you're looking at specifics, you see. So clean UI, sleek UI, imagery, you're looking at specifics. So you're drawing information from your journey map. You're drawing information from the initial conversations with the clients, their expectations, the actions they want the client to take. You're drawing information from your competitive analysis, and then you're looking at your list of urgency and importance to specify the user needs. So you can categorize this in the order of maybe still the things that are important, you can list them first. The things that are not important, you can list them second, and so on until you get to the fourth quadrant. So you can list in that category as well. So, but basically here you're listing specifics. You're listing specifics, you're listing, what is needed. And then you can start categorizing and grouping them from here to know how you can organize your pages, how you can organize your structures. So, and which when you are done with this listing, you now get to the final stage, which is the information architecture. So, but I didn't get to go, very detailed into that because I mean, that would be a whole lot. And I think we're already far gone in our time. So one of the things the information architecture does is after you've gathered your user requirements, which is list, you can start easily from the user flow, which showcases the homepage. When you land at your homepage, the next things, these are key actions that we're able to take. The first one, they are CTA, it's call to action. you can put another button there after you do short description of yourself. The next again is still the menu. So both are basically doing the same function. If you click order now, it's taking you to the menu. If you click menu, it's still taking you to the menu. So if you don't want to click menu, the next thing is colors. Okay, fine. If you don't want the colors, you're not sure, find out about us, find a store. So about us too, after maybe creative, I want to go details into that page. After they're reading about us, they can still put some of these buttons there. They'll still link them to purchase from you. So if they're finding a store, and then for the homepage, of course, the cart has to be accessed like I've mentioned. So for every especially for desktop situation, for every page they're accessing, they can always just click the cart and come back to that page. So then when you're done with the user flow, for this simple user flow I've done, this is just a simple wireframe. This is the CTA down over here. And of course, this is your menu. This is usually the structure a website takes. And of course, this is, the brand's logo. And to my right here, you have the prototype as well. So this is not necessarily a full web development, a full developed site. So this that's why I had to state it, but this is like a high fidelity mockup. So this is where you create, your prototype, where it's looking like the real deal, and people can actually interact with it to a great extent. You can test this out with users and see how effective it is. If it's not so effective, you can still rework your strategies. You can still, redesign and still test. When it comes to that point where it is good to go, then this can actually be developed into a proper website and then can be launched into the market and people can actually interact with it. So yeah, I think that's basically, so this is the final words I have. So starting with users, their hopes, fears, and needs, we quickly uncover what's most desirable. Once we have determined a range of solutions, next step will be to find out what's technically feasible to actually implement and how to make the solution financially viable. So I think that's all for today. Thank you, everyone. So I don't know if there's any question or contribution. So now's the time.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I think it's been very, very well structured and I think also very detailed. I think it really gives a really good overview on, how to actually approach your UX design, right? And I think, the biggest learning really for anyone is the fact that it's the user experience and customer experience is very important, and that you do need to give it much more thought than a couple of years ago, especially because most of your customer acquisition today is actually happening on your digital channels, right? So whereas before maybe you had more traffic coming into the store to place your orders, you actually now have much more traffic happening online, which means that conversion has to be seamless and it needs to be appealing, and you need to make sure that you have all the right information like you highlighted, and that it's easy to navigate so that people actually know where do they need to go, what do they need to do. You need to make sure that they trust your payment gateways and all of that. So I think it was a really great presentation and well structured. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Ma.
Does anyone have questions to ask David, please? You can unmute yourself to ask.
Like they'll always tell us in secondary school that if there's no question, it means everyone fully understood. So thank you for joining this. It's a great privilege and pleasure to have you on this session. Thank you, and join us for our next session in 2 weeks' time. Do have a nice day. Thank you, everyone.